What's good, everybody? Marc Henry with the Platform DFW Podcast, part of the Platform Podcast Network. Go check out the DR Sports YouTube channel for all the podcasts across the country. But you know where it's at. It's always Texas. Shout out to the Horns for getting that big victory over OU in the Cotton Bowl. But listen, let's talk high school football. The big one, if you want to talk about a rivalry, you want to talk about a backyard brawl. Last week, hey, Duncanville DeSoto, it comes down to Maximus Denson. He had a monster game, 7 touchdowns, over 350 yards passing, as Duncanville takes it 48-28. Now 11-6A, it's all up to the Cedar Hill Longhorns. Can they get it done? They're at the top of the standings right now. They're the only undefeated team left. It's kind of a dog pile in the rest of it, with DeSoto, Waxahachie, and Duncanville each having a loss. But DeSoto knocked off Hatchie, Hatchie knocked off Duncanville, Duncanville knocks off DeSoto. So now we got to settle it on the turf. We got to settle it on the field. Cedar Hill takes on Waxahachie this week. We're going to talk about that and more. But let's backtrack a little bit. Denson was phenomenal. We had a chance to pull up on this game. Packed out stadium. It's, hey, it's a backyard type thing. These guys are probably less than 10 minutes from each other in proximity with schools, the neighborhoods. Everybody knows each other. It was going down. Great atmosphere. Everybody in the building. But Denson was the player of the game. Platform Podcast, DFW Podcast, player of the game for week 7. He was phenomenal, man. His ability to get the ball out quick, get good decisions. He had to move sometimes in the pocket. Soto brought the blitz. They wanted to put pressure on him, and they did that. But he stood tall, and he stood up, and he made the big plays. Yancey had a big game as well. Ace and Theus, Zachary Turner got a touchdown as well as Ellison as well. And listen, I think Manny Ellison's one of those guys, some college coaches on the sideline. You're going to start to see some of those colleges get a hold of him. The senior wide receiver's been a guy that maybe not get a lot of love or, the limelight. Of course, you're going to hear the big names in Theus, Turner, and you're definitely going to hear about Yancey. But Ellison had a good game as well. But shout out to the Duncanville offensive line for doing a wonderful job too as well. Defensively, Landon Barnes, he was that guy. A couple of major sacks, playing well against the run to kind of hold DeSoto here and there. But I thought that Victor Lincoln in the second half was the big difference defensively for Duncanville. That allowed his sticky coverage allowed for Barnes and company up front to make some plays. Manning played well at linebacker as well as Braylon Edwards on the back end. Some big hits delivered. But for DeSoto, listen, all is not lost. They're going to be a playoff team. And I think for them, Legend Howell, who had a very efficient game, over 200 yards passing, several touchdowns. Bobby Feaster, of course, the USC commit was phenomenal. But Sherrod Baker, man, if you have to be living under a tree and not heard about this guy. I think he's one of the best backs in the 2027 class in the state of Texas. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's just an athlete. He's a plug-and-play type of player. Whatever part of the puzzle he needs to piece into, he does it. Big-time catch, one-handed catch. I'm sure you've seen it all over the internet. But this guy had a phenomenal game as well. He even plays special teams. It's very rare that you see your star players playing special teams, covering punts and kicks. Sherrod Baker's elite. Stamp that. You heard it right here on the Platform DFW Podcast. Of course, ballers ball. That's my saying. You got to let your ballers ball. You got to let your playmakers be playmakers. And, shout out to Coach Mathis, Coach Sweeney, and those guys. They'll be back. They got to do some work to get back, to the playoffs, and I think they will. They'll be a playoff team for sure. I thought that Legend Howell played a really good game. His ability to get outside the pocket and make some big throws, on time, in rhythm. The fade ball was on point. He had a couple of fade balls to Bobby Feaster that was on point, and the fade ball over the middle to Sherrod Baker was on point. I mean, he dropped it in the bucket. That's how you teach it, for all the quarterback gurus out there. But Legend Howell's a guy that's going to be pushing probably for some district honors when it comes out to this 11-6A, district awards at the end of the year. But, Cedar Hill's got a big one against Waxahachie this week. I think that, Cedar Hill's defense, led by Brewster, the Texas Tech commit, is definitely one to reckon with. And listen, they got a quarterback, last name Muhammad, that's very, very good. He's a dual threat. He's a guy that can get it done with his arm and his feet. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. Cedar Hill hosts Waxahachie, so the Indians got to go on the road to get this one. I expect Coach Tolley and the guys to be ready to go. Jerry Meyer had a phenomenal win, had a phenomenal game against Mesquite Horn last week. Corn Brown got in the end zone a couple of times. They got Jordan Smith. These guys can play. Taylor Strange in the backfield, which I think is a big deal for Waxahachie. They got a dog at running back that they can get handed off to. He's one of those sophomore rushers that you need to know about. But it's kind of piled up right there. 11-6A is one of those districts, man. We talked about this on last week. Who's going to come out on top? Right now, Cedar Hill's sitting at the top. He's looking down on everybody. But listen, we got a couple weeks to go. Playoff position is starting to happen. Teams are starting to really, really dig in. But you got to win every game. Week to week from here on out, we're heading into week 8 of the high school football season. You got to win every game. This is one of those things where you have to get your business taken care of right then. And the Duncanville Panthers took care of business. But let's look at a few more scores before we move on and talk about week 8 around the DFW. Let's go over a few scores real quick. Arlington Martin falls to Bowie 56-43. South Grand Prairie, the Gophers are undefeated. This is one of those teams you need to know about. They went into Arlington and beat a very game and young Arlington Lamar Vikings team 53-0. Shai Lucas was phenomenal. Kate Wallace and those guys have been playing at a high level. Argyle takes care of Seguin in a big matchup, over in that district, 41-24. W.T. White falls to Newman Smith. Newman Smith has been making some noise. They're a team that you need to know about. 61-14. They take care of business. The Carter Cowboys get on the winning side of things with a big 43-0 victory over Roosevelt. One big one over in 6A, over in that Mansfield, Crowley, North Crowley district. Mansfield takes care of Crowley 28-14. That's a big win for the Tigers to kind of keep pace in that district. Now, the Crowley Eagles got some work to do if they want to get back into the playoff hunt. But it starts this week. They take on Lake Ridge, who had a 10-0 lead on North Crowley. That was a game we went to on Thursday night. And North Crowley scores 62 points in a row to kind of deaden that thing in the water. I mean, this was one of those dominant North Crowley outings. Shout out to Coach Gates and company. They really, really focused on the running game. Keontae Ingram was phenomenal. He's one of the best 2027 rushers in the state of Texas. He got busy. He got in the end zone a couple of times. Jarrell Smith got in the end zone as well. This was a total team win. And you can see, the Panthers kind of getting their feet back up underneath them. The loss against Rockwall is out of the way. It's done. It's over with. They're focused on bigger and better things. They got to win this district. Remember, they've been district champs the last 3 years. So they're on a mission to keep that thing rolling. But I thought that Mansfield win over Crowley was a big one when it comes to playoff seeding. Geyer over Hebron 44-16. Now, a little foreshadowing, a little look ahead. Now, Geyer's got a big one this week against Flower Mount Marcus. But hey, they also got to see Louisville, the Fighting Farmers. That's in that district. And, it's a Halloween match. So it's going to be some great, spooky, big-time games on Halloween. We'll talk about that as the weeks progress, but that's a big one there for Geyer to keep pace in there. And Walnut Grove, listen, Walnut Grove's one of those teams in 5A D2 that you need to know about. I think ranked number 6 or 7, depending on the polls that you look at around the state of Texas. Hayes Hackney's been phenomenal, the sophomore quarterback, but Cam Newton's a guy that you need to know about in the 2026 class. He's a guy that kind of sets the tone offensively for those guys that can run it. He can catch passes out of the backfield. Hayden Cooley on that offense as well. Hatcher, the linebacker, has been playing at a phenomenal level on the defensive side of the ball for Walnut Grove. And you got Christopher Williams, the man in the middle in that odd front that they play. But we're going to talk about their game this week. They got a big one. They're welcoming in the Coyotes from Anna, as that's going to be a big game. But they get by Frisco Liberty 70-14. Another big victory for Halton, the Buffaloes. Stampede the Grand Prairie Gophers 61-20. That's a big win for those guys. Definitely got to pay attention to those guys. We talked about the North Crowley win. I think that, they're the creme de la creme in that district. They go to Weatherford on the road this week. They're gonna keep that thing rolling. And I see those guys really repeating as district champs over there. They just got to keep that rolling. And shout out to Coach Gates and company over there. The Mansfield Legacy with a big one over Boswell. Now, the previous week, Boswell beat Crowley. which was a tough loss, and then they come back and they lose to Mansfield. Now Legacy takes care of business against Boswell 36-30. I think that's a big win for those guys to kind of keep their playoff hopes alive as well. Now we talked about the Anacoyos. They got a big one over Emerson 56-14 that sets up the game we'll talk about here shortly against Walnut Grove this week, which is one we'll have our eye on for sure. Definitely, we're going to break this game down here in just a little bit. But, some of the scores around the Metroplex definitely, caught our eye. But a big one to me was Rockwall Heat takes care of business against previous unbeaten North Forney. North Forney, of course, everybody knows about the dynamic Legend Bay. They get this victory in overtime. Carter Zom and Prosper Neal, the quarterback for Rockwall Heath, connected in overtime to get the victory to send a message around in that district. Now, this is one of those other districts in the 6A division in DFW that you need to know about. Heath, which is Rockwall Heath, Rockwall, Forney, North Forney, and Roy City. This is a pack, and you can't forget about Longview. The Lobos. So that's five good teams that you got to think about trying to jockey for four particular positions trying to get into the playoffs. And then speaking of that district, we talked about the Forney Jackrabbits. They go on the road to East Texas and knock off Longview. That was a big, big victory in that district. It kind of muddies it up right now, and with Rockwall Heath and Rockwall, another October 31st matchup that's on the way. If they continue to win and do what they need to do, we're looking at a possible big time matchup on Halloween. But I mean, I really think that Heath showed, shout out to Coach Webb and those guys over there. Coach Rodney Webb's a veteran coach. He's been in these battles. He was at Guyer, he was at Highland Park, and now he's got Rockwall Heath playing some phenomenal football. But let's move to the games this week. A big one that we're looking at on Thursday is LD Bell and Keller Central. Keller Central is playing at a high level. That's a big, big matchup for playoff seeding because right now, hey, South Lake Carroll's the number one team in the state. Definitely, there's no doubts about it. That right now, if you ask anybody that's watching ball, South Lake Carroll's the favorite to win a state title this year. But that's a big one over in that district because Bell's been playing well. Keller Central's been playing well, and the loser in this one it's going to be tough for them to kind of get in the playoffs. But that's a big one that we kind of got our eye on as well. Now Thursday we're going to be pulling up to the D and Pleasant Grove. Madison takes on Life Oak Cliff. Life Oak Cliff is one of those teams that's right now fighting for a playoff spot as well. They have one of the best freshman receivers in the country in Shakur Cooper Jr. We're going to go check him out, of course. Cooper, listen, he's a phenomenal talent. We had a chance to see him as a seventh grader, and he's just done nothing but get better. The quarterback, Cam Phillips, is phenomenal as well. He's leading the state in yards. Definitely going to pull up. That's a Thursday game that the Platform DFW is going to pull up, and we're going to talk about, and check these guys out. We're going to check these guys out. Shout out to my guy, A. Lou. We're going to be in the building. That's Thursday, 7 o'clock over at Pleasant Grove Stadium, Madison and Life Oak Cliff. Now, Friday, several big matchups that you need to know about. Of course, we talked about Mansfield, the Tigers, getting a big victory over Crowley last week. Now, Legacy comes in. That's a rivalry. Both of these teams jockeying for position. Of course, Legacy with the big win we talked about last week, and of course, Mansfield with the big win over Crowley. The loser in this game is going to have to really work themselves up to stay where it is when we talk about playoffs. Because right now, North Crowley is the creme de la creme. They're the top dog in that district. And you got Legacy, that's for Lake Ridge, and then Mansfield as well. So I think the winner of this game definitely puts themselves in a position to be a playoff team. Trinity and Keller, that's another big game. Mac Lineweaver had a big game last week, over 200 yards and a couple touchdowns. I think that Trinity has to come out and establish that running game. They definitely have to get in the mix and get physical with these guys and get back to old Trinity football. You know what I'm saying? If you've never seen Euless Trinity play, man, it's a phenomenal the way they open up the game with the haka. If you've never seen that in person, man, it's something amazing that you have to see. But I think that's a big game now. In a 5A D2 district, Argyle and Summit. This will probably be for the district title right here. The Argyle Eagles, of course, McGuire Gaspers has been playing phenomenal. They got Julian Caldwell on the outside, Braden Bach, tight end. This is a team that wants to maul you. They want to get back to those state championship ways. Last year, they made it to the semifinals and lost to a very good South Oak Cliff team. They got championship aspirations. They got to get by Summit. And Ian Gephardt, listen, go to the platform .drsports.com and check out the article that it features Gephardt. He's a guy we had a chance to see several times. Shout out to True Buzz. Shout out to Brooks and company over there. He's been one of those guys that's been on that True Buzz team that's won a lot over there. And now he's a senior. But now he had to step into a role where he's playing a little quarterback. He's probably going to be a receiver or a running back at the next level. But the quarterback goes down and you fit. He's one of those glue guys. He's one of those plug and play players. He fills in and makes things happen. Over 200 yards, a couple touchdowns, about 50, 60 yards passing last week as they got the victory. So, Summit's going to ground and pound you. Now, can Argyle hold up defensively? That's going to be the matchup. It's going to be the matchup in the trenches. Now, this was in Argyle where they don't lose at home very often. They lost the first game of the year against a very good Lone Star team out of Frisco. But listen, a lot of people like Frisco Lone Star as a possible state championship contender in 5AD1. So that was a tough loss, but Argyle's rebound, that's their only loss of the season. Capel and Louisville, 7 o'clock Friday in Capel. Now, Carter Zingelman's been playing at a high level at the quarterback position for Capel. He'll lead the charge. He's a 2028 guy, a dual threat. He can pass it, can run it. On the flip side, Trey Williams for Louisville has been playing at a high level. The junior quarterback has been playing great. You got Tanel Hill and those guys in the backfield, Trajan Mueller. They've been playing at a high level. This is going to be a game that decides probably if Louisville goes on to, they can't get too far ahead of themselves and look at the Guy game on Halloween. They got to focus on Capel because Capel and Coach Wiley, they're going to be, ready to go. And I think this is a very, very good game. Of course, Louisville, the Fighting Farmers, they got a really good team. You got Deuce Mathis on the defensive side of the ball. Has been playing at a high level at the safety nickel position, special teams, kick returner as well. Louisville, the Fighting Farmers, that 2027 class for Louisville is very, very talented. You got Boogie Bogany, kind of a hybrid wide receiver, tight end guy that you need to know about as well. This might be a game we might have to pull up on Friday. It's on the list, but we're going to see. And Richardson Pierce, that's another good game. Shout out to Richardson, man. The Eagles been playing at a high level. That's our backyard brawl, if you will. And then right down the street, you got Berkner and Lake Highlands. That's another game that we got on our radar as well. I think that both of these teams, all 4 of these teams, they're right in the same area, in the same district. And they know each other. So, we talk about backyard brawls and rivalries and things. You got 4 teams right there that know each other, and they're in the same district. So the winners of these games set themselves up to be, playoff teams or, possibly a district title. But nobody's playing at a higher level than Chuck Smith, quarterback for Lake Highlands. Got his opportunity this year, and he's balling out. Christian Rhodes in the backfield for Lake Highlands is a guy you need to know about. He's an SMU commit. This is a game that we definitely have on our radar. Another game we talked about before we get out of here is Prosper, Walnut Grove, and Anna. This will be a district matchup that's possibly the winner goes on to win the district. Now, Anna's only loss was to Melissa. Walnut Grove still has to play Melissa. And we talked about Walnut Grove's quarterback, but let's talk about Anna's quarterback and DeAndre Williams. He's one of the better signal callers in the state, not just in DFW. He's a guy that's going to do it all. He can run it. He can throw it. He can even hop on defense if you need it. Michael Kennedy's an emerging wide receiver for the Anna Coyotes, and he's been playing at a high level, that big offensive line that they have. I think that this is going to be a great game. Of course, Anna goes on the road now. This is going to be a challenge because Walnut Grove has been putting up big-time points. They put up 70 last week. So I expect this to be a high-scoring affair. But I think that, it's going to come down to who makes, the big plays here and there. Cam Newton, we talked about him earlier in the show, the 2026 running back. He's going to get the ball. He's going to be a focus point for that Anna Coyote defense. You know that when he gets the ball in his hands, things happen. But don't forget about Hayden Cooley on the outside. This is a big-time receiver who picked up a Syracuse offer at the beginning of the season. He's a playmaker. He's a guy that can get deep and make big catches over the top. So this is one of those games that you got to point to and be like, hey, we got to get this done, man. And I think that, Walnut Grove is one of those teams. They're undefeated, ranked in the state right now in 5AD2. They can't get too ahead of themselves, but they've been playing in big games the last 2 years. They went on a deep run. They won the district, went undefeated in the regular season last year. Now they welcome in a very, very good Anna team. A couple more games that we're looking at, Forney and Rockwall. This is going to be a big-time game. Of course, hey, the Rockwall Yellow Jackets knocked off North Crowley a few weeks ago. Forney goes on the road to East Texas and knocks off Longview. Javion Osborne is one of the best backs in the country in the 2026 class, committed to Notre Dame. Rockwall's going to have to stop this. Now, when they played North Crowley a couple of weeks ago, Jarrell Smith had 5 touchdowns. You can expect a heavy dose of Nelson Peterson and a heavy dose of Javion Osborne. They want to run that peel. They want to establish themselves on that offensive line. Big Caraway. Shout out to Jordan Caraway. He's 2027 offensive line that you need to know about. Got off from SMU and a couple more schools. 6'5". We're talking about a guy that's long, lean, athletic, skinny ankles. He's an offensive tackle that you need to know about. But I think this game, will be a telltale sign because Forney already lost to North Forney. Rockwall hasn't lost yet in that district. So we're going to see what happens. Brent Eichert, the quarterback for Rockwall, is a phenomenal talent. He's a 2-year starter. He threw for over 2,000 yards last year, and he's on a pace to do that again. He's the tone setter for these guys. Duckworth, that wide receiver, as well. Stanford committed. So this is gonna have some playoff implications, possibly district title implications when you talk about who's going to come out in that particular district. I know that this game is one that I have circled, and definitely one that we'll keep our eye on. But listen, man, that's all we got for you today here on the Platform DFW Podcast. Again, man, check us out at the Platform on Twitter at the Platform DR in all caps. The website, check out the articles, man, we got from this weekend. Shout out to all my guys working hard out there, boots on the ground. That's what the Platform Scouts are all about. Definitely been working and grinding. And check out the Platform Podcast Network on the DR Sports YouTube channel. I am your host, Marc Henry. Of course, Texas is always the best DFW, the Platform DFW Podcast. Man, it's been great. Tap back in with me. Stay tuned, and we'll come back next week and holler at you.